Trump, of course, pushing back on Kelly's comments as well, calling his former chief of staff a, quote, total degenerate. He posted on Truth Social saying Kelly made up the story out of pure Trump derangement syndrome hatred, adding that John Kelly is a lowlife and a bad general whose advice in the White House I no longer sought, and told him to move on. So, Robert, whether or not this conversation actually happened and whether or not Trump actually made these remarks is kind of beside the point at this point, because it kind of seems, is the damage maybe already done here? And if so, what kind of impact is this going to have on Trump's campaign?
At this point, I think it's going to have little impact, Crystal, and I'll tell you why. Because we've been hearing charges like this for years, and the American people are ready to move on. They are not focused on the past. They're focused on the future. And I'll tell you what, the fact that Kamala Harris, over the closing days of this campaign, is so focused on calling Donald Trump names and not articulating a policy position or plans for the American people tells you everything that you need to know about the panic that is represented in the Democratic Party right now. They know that Donald Trump is gaining momentum, not only in the swing states, but also nationally. If she cannot carry the national popular vote and she loses that, this is going to be a landslide victory for Donald Trump. And so I think that these are distractions. John Kelly is a bitter old man who was fired by Donald Trump. Of course he has an agenda and wants to score political points against him in these closing days.
Well, speaking of moving on from he said, she said, let's talk about border and immigration. I mean, these are central issues in this race. Both Trump and Harris hitting on the topics in their respective events yesterday. Let's take a look and we'll comment after.
Immediately upon taking the oath of office, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
I pledge that I am going to bring forward that bipartisan bill to further strengthen and secure our border.
Robert, in your assessment, how are voters responding to this issue of border security in this race?
This is one of the number one issues, probably trails the economy as what's top of mind for the American people. And in both cases, I think Donald Trump wanting to enforce the law, making sure that people who have entered the country illegally are prosecuted in ways that the American people want. Let's face it, there is a legal system for people to go and become U.S. citizens. These people have skipped the line. It's not fair to those who are waiting through the process. And as for Kamala Harris and this bipartisan border bill that she keeps bringing up, let's remember that that bill would have allowed more illegal aliens to come into our country. So that is not a solution that the American people want to correct this border crisis that she herself has perpetuated.
David, I want you to respond to that.
Yeah, I think it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. This is Donald Trump's style. He just talks about the problem, has no plan to fix it. We had an idea of how we could actually pass this and get some common sense legislation passed, because this is not about illegal immigration now. This is about people entering our country, applying for asylum status, waiting 6, 7 years for that case to be adjudicated. Those are the problems. And Donald Trump did nothing to fix the structural problems of our immigration process. We all have to admit that process is broken, and that's why people are frustrated. Donald Trump complains all day long about this. Then we have an opportunity to actually do something. Maybe it's not the full loaf that we want, but it's something. And that's what we need to move towards. Instead, it's this rhetoric about the largest deportation in American history. There's a lot of details that I want to know, and the American people should demand to know about that instead of this nonsensical rhetoric. It's very dangerous. And back to the point before about Kamala Harris calling names, I mean, just check out a Donald Trump rally or any of the things that he's talking about. He's disparaging anyone that criticizes him at all. He used a 4-letter word about our vice president, Kamala Harris, at a rally this past weekend. I mean, this is really getting to an absurd level. And I feel that many of the media and journalists just pass by because it's so common. My recommendation to people is watch these rallies, see what Donald Trump is saying, and take him for his word. Don't rely on the pundits to spin everything he says, because everything he says has to be filtered to, oh, wait, what does that mean? He said the other day he's going to end sanctuary cities. The anchor asked, how are you going to do that? Oh, I'm going to do it through executive order. Oh, well, will that really work? No. He forgets we have a Congress, we have a Constitution, and we have to obey those rules. And it's not always easy, but it's a give and take, and we have to work together to solve the major problems facing our country. And Donald Trump doesn't want to do that. He wants to do it himself alone, and not work with Congress or anyone that might disagree with him.
David, I do want to address something. I mean, Kamala Harris, to your point, talking about the issues that face this country and what people are talking about, immigration, economy being the top two. Kamala Harris had a perfect opportunity in yesterday's CNN town hall to address those issues. Many are saying she missed her mark here. Many are saying that she did not address those clearly, did not give enough detail. And, and I hate to use this word because it is used repeatedly, but it's what everybody is saying. The word salad, it's kind of dancing around the subject. Your candidate had a prime opportunity 2 weeks out. What's your take on her performance at that town hall?
Well, first, let's look at this. What did Donald Trump say at the CNN town hall? Nothing, because he refused to do it. What did he say in the 60 Minutes interview? Oh, wait, he didn't do it. He's avoiding some of the most mainstream media, and he calls it fake news, even though he claims to do well at the CNN debate he did. So Donald Trump has removed himself from most eyeballs. He's only talking to friendly audience. He's doubling down on his base. But to say that Kamala Harris isn't answering the questions, I think is absurd. You only have a certain amount of time. You could always criticize and say you could have said more. There's a lot more we can say today, but we have a limited time frame. So I think we have to give Kamala Harris credit for going on Fox News, CNN, 60 Minutes, where Donald Trump is nowhere to be found. And remember, if there's clarity issues, then we should have a debate. But Donald Trump has refused to do another debate, which I think speaks volumes, not only in their platforms, but in the character of these people. One willing to go into the lion's den like Fox News and say, look, this is where I stand. Take it or leave it, but this is where I am. Donald Trump refuses to do that and has been ambiguous on many issues, not detailing what he's going to do. We talked about sanctuary cities, massive deportation, IVF. He has said nothing about how that's actually going to work, and that's a real problem. You hear him bashing issues like the Affordable Care Act, and then he says, oh, wait, I'm going to save the Affordable Care Act. Wait, did he say that? Or did someone else say that? I mean, it's just talk about not being clear. I think that is Donald Trump, and Kamala Harris is trying to articulate these issues. Hey, David, you only have so much time in this
We have to be careful. This isn't a filibuster. We've got to give Robert an opportunity to give us balance. But we hear you. We hear you, and we thank you for your perspective. Robert, go ahead.
Well, first of all, Donald Trump went on Dr. Phil. I haven't seen Kamala Harris on this network. So, David, what's stopping her from coming on Merit Street? And first of all, there's no reason for Donald Trump to go on CNN or CBS. Nobody's watching those networks anymore. The American people are turning to alternatives like Joe Rogan, which Donald Trump will actually sit down and talk to Joe Rogan. I don't see Kamala Harris going on that show. Instead, she's going on a raunchy sex podcast. That sends a signal to the American people that she is not a serious candidate. She is somebody who doesn't want to answer those tough questions, and she's going to go take softballs from Anderson Cooper. I mean, that's traditionally what politicians do. And so I reject, respectfully, David, your assessment of the media landscape. I think that things are changing, and for the better, because the American people no longer trust those outlets.
All right, Robert Bluey, David Carlucci.
To say they no longer trust 60 Minutes and that, I think is just totally unfair.
Thank you both so much for joining us this morning. We could be here for hours discussing back and forth, but unfortunately we have got to move on, and we do appreciate your time this morning.
And you know what? And thank you. We are setting an example of civil discourse. This is how you discuss the issues civilly. So thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate that, and we look forward to having you back on.